Hello again, welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. You should be welcoming me.
I was going to say, welcome back, Paul. We haven't seen you in a couple of weeks because you've been busy doing the PrecisionAg stuff. So,
the heck, it's been crazy. Well, first we had the PrecisionAg Accelerator, and we had there's about 60 folks for that.
Nice.
It was, I may have even said this before. I can't remember if it was so long ago that I've been on this. I can't even remember whether I talked about this before. But it was a really good event. What was interesting was that we had a lot of competitors in the room,
Really?
and they were really engaging and talking to each other, and it wasn't there wasn't any slugfests or fights, although there was a near fight. There was Mike Bulgy had mentioned. Talked about the expressed the idea of retailers being available 24/7 for their customers, and one of our attendees jumped up and said, "Absolutely not." But eventually it clarified to, you have to manage the customers, and some customers are so difficult to deal with that you may have to fire them if they're just that hard. If you just can't serve them in a way that makes them satisfied.
Either that or you move into their bunkhouse. I mean,
that's really up to you, and that's his idea. But the thought was, when you have a difficult to manage customer like that, especially, and the idea is calling on weekends and things like that, rather than let it go and just be frustrated, you call them on Friday night and say, look, these are our weekend hours, and if you want to reach us, if you think you're going to need something over the weekend, we need to talk now, rather than having them call on Saturday at 6 p.m. saying I need some load Sunday. It's a way to manage a customer, or try to manage it actively, as opposed to just kind of waiting and hoping it doesn't happen. Sure. Ultimately, it ends up happening. So, that idea of 24/7 services, it's great in theory, but in terms of when you're in the middle of a busy season, there are ways you can manage that and have the appearance of 24/7 without actually being on your cell phone and having it attached to your head.
I'm thinking this is a technology thing, virtual reality, where you can just pipe in your agronomist at 24/7 anytime, and it'll be a virtual thing. So.
No,
okay.
I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be. Once again, you took it one step too far. Just sorry, habit of yours. So anyway, and then we had InfoAg last week, and I think the only thing I'd say about InfoAg was interesting. There really wasn't. I mean, there was some interesting news. I mean, the ProAgrica SST deal was on the table, and we talked a little bit about that, but that was out pretty much before the conference. But I think in terms of the general mood, it was a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening in the back, and having been to most of the InfoAgs, except for the first couple, there are some shows where there's just lots of stuff on the floor and lots of engagement, and there's some shows where things are happening behind the scenes. A couple of comments to me were, there's probably 3 or 4 acquisitions being negotiated here at the show, in the back rooms, and not really out on the floor. So you felt a lot of that. I think sessions were pretty well attended, but I think there's an interest in trying to figure out where the business is going from a lot of these major suppliers, manufacturers, etc. So probably, my guess is we'll see some things happening in the next probably 6 months or so as announcements, or maybe it's partnerships more than acquisitions. But things are happening, companies are engaging, and I thought that was probably the most interesting thing to come of it.
Yeah, that is what we see more of these days, these partnerships. I know that, I forget who was, while you were at InfoAg, there was a press release that came out, may have been an SST one, but you're talking about the partnerships that are going on in precision. So, interesting. Yeah,
and CPS Purchasing Agrible, that was an interesting little deal, and we need to explore that a little bit more thoroughly. But there's some stuff going on.
Of course, it's not CPS anymore.
Where are the CPS signs? I keep asking for.
PrecisionAg Solutions.
So when you put those new signs up and you pull down the CPS signs, I want one. Okay. I really do, because I think it would look great on my wall. Really authentic.
All right.
Okay, so anyway, what else is going on?
Well, I was going to say, while you were traveling, actually, I made a road trip of my own. I was just outside of Indianapolis for, Paul, the first annual Corteva Field Day, which used to be the old Dow Field Day. The folks there at Corteva were talking all about what was going on in the market from their combined perspective about the product lines the company is offering. And actually I had a chance to talk one-on-one with Dave Rome from Corteva, who had been talking about water hemp resistance in the Midwest and was making some pointers that folks should follow to be, try to keep the resistant weeds from spreading in their fields. Things, recommendations like Scouties, etc., and so on. But his fifth point was particularly interesting, and that's what he'll talk about here in this video clip.
Fifth point of what we were trying to address today with water hemp, and one of the things that ties in so closely with what we're trying to accomplish today is application technology. There are so many situations and different ways to apply things today, but really what we have to focus on is that not every herbicide is the same. Some herbicides have to have higher gallonage, finer droplet size. Some of them want to have a little bit lower pressure and maybe a larger droplet size in order to penetrate the plant. And different herbicides react differently, so it's important that we really address that. The other thing is we want to make sure that we're applying things correctly. Boom heights are not supposed to be at 48 inches above the ground. Instead, what we need to make sure is they're targeting 20 to 24 inches. In doing so, what you have is the great overlap. And when you have that positive overlap of the herbicide and it's going out of the nozzle, then what you have is each plant getting the proper dosage. If not, you could have some plants getting as much as 150%, while others may only get 10 or 20%. In doing so, that only exceeds and ramps up the possibility for resistance in any kind of species that we have today.
So that's what Dave had to say about water hemp resistance in the Midwest. And one other thing that was kind of interesting, Paul, while we were there, I noticed that one of the water hemp plants in the soybean field they had at the field day had some bite marks out of the leaves. And I asked Dave if that was, that there was some insect out there perhaps that enjoyed eating water hemp. But unfortunately informed me that was Japanese beetles that were actually eating the soybeans and just happened to get some of the water hemp by accident as well. So not really a predator for water hemp out in the marketplace, according to him.
And you weren't hungry or anything?
I was not hungry.
Okay. That's good. You're well fed. All right. Well, good. That's interesting. Yeah, I think in mentioning the kind of the mechanical issues, and I mean that's something that we'll have to pay very close attention to. I think it's a really good point because we tend to just kind of go and maybe not think about those little specific differences in how we approach it. So.
Yes. Well, two other tidbits to share. One, of course, we've been talking the last couple of sessions about the tariffs that are in place now between China and the U.S. and other countries and how that's hurting the agricultural community, in particular soybean producers and pork producers, Paul. The Trump administration had promised to have some type of a relief effort come into focus, and now we found out, as we're doing this video, that there is now a program in place offering about $12 billion in assistance to growers for the 2018 season. That'll come in three different forms. One, it'll be direct payments to growers affected by the tariffs. Two, there'll be a program where we'll buy surpluses from these growers and then distribute it to food banks around the country. And lastly, there's going to be an effort to invest money to develop new export markets for U.S. agriculture. So, Paul, that's the response we're going to get from the Trump administration. This will be a one-year thing for 2018, but we'll have to see if that indeed helps some of the growers out there who are suffering.
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's such a it's a mixed bag of reaction when you look at Twitter and some of the social media things. It's some growers are just up in arms about, and it's it's what you usually expect is folks just don't want welfare. Folks do not want.
They want to make their own money, exactly.
And it's just not good for agriculture. It's not good for the industry to have the words welfare tied to ag in any way, shape, or form. So it's problematic and unfortunate that it's come to that. And if all works out and the trade deals can be renegotiated, I guess that's something it's a pill we'll have to swallow. But it's pretty tough. It's not having a kind of a bailout program for agriculture is not something I thought I would see in my 20 years, especially the last 10 years of agriculture.
However, it is an election year, Paul, so keep that in mind.
Yes, midterms are on the way.
That they are. And the only other thing to mention, of course, we were following the consolidation trend, and all the major players seem to have gotten together and merged like they wanted to, and now some of the second wave is beginning, Paul. We found out this week that PrecisionAg has agreed to sell its Arista line to United Phosphorus for $4.2 billion. When that deal is done, Arista will be folded into United Phosphorus and go by the UPL name, and Platform will change its name to Element Solutions once the deal is complete.
Yep, just strengthening in the post-patent segments, and just trying to figure out ways to stay strong and battle it out in the marketplace.
Very good.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, I was going to say that's not the last thing, because the most important thing
is the mug. Yeah, remember last week we had Brad Todebush from MFA here as our guest speaker talking about the Environmental Respect Program, and Brad was kind enough to share a mug with me. So to Brad and all my other friends at MFA, thank you very much. I appreciate the ability to be able to drink my beverage of choice from a mug with your logo on it.
Yeah, and let's not cheapen this, folks, because I had somebody come up to me at InfoAg with a pen and a Starbucks mug. And he said, if I could actually scan, if I could put my logo on this with my pen, if I actually did a drawing of it, would you be willing to put this on? And I was like, absolutely not. Has to be ceramic. Sorry, I have to
be
draw
professional. Yes,
the line. It must be an actual mug to qualify. So, just to clarify. At least, please don't send paper mugs.
Yeah, and next week, Paul, you'll be by yourself. I'll be at the Trade Summit in Phoenix for Agribusiness Global, our sister publication, and guess we'll be back here sometime in early August.
Sounds awesome. Well, thanks for joining us at this edition of CropLife Retail Week, and we'll see you soon.